Charlotte, your offense, woof. LaMelo Ball can't save the day in this one. They lose to Orlando. What's going to fix the offense? What do we make of LaMelo's 40-burger? He finally got within the 40-point range. We'll get to all of that today with David Walker on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free. We are available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Are you puzzled by something, Doug? You got a confused / duck face going on.
Well, I got a lot of screens going on. I'm trying to get all my screens arranged, trying to get my notes pulled up. There's a lot going on over here. This is a major production that we do every day. And it's a major production, but it's put together with minor pieces of bubble gum and duct tape. And so I'm moving pieces of bubble gum around.
Well, you make sure that Bubblicious is wrapped around the pipes that make all this work. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. It's not just his Substack anymore, by the way. It's David Walker's too. There's David. He joins us
weekly.
Doug?
It's the people's. We just guide the ship.
That's what the Constitution says.
It's written in the Constitution. David Walker on Twitter at David B. Walker. Also, Doug doing a bunch of other stuff. Locked On NBA. You can text him by finding his text information there. Also on everyhornetsboxscore.com. A couple of other things we got to take care of. I got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Built. Today's episode being brought to you by Built means that you can start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbuilt, JOINBILT, joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA, and start earning points on rent that you're already paying. This episode now also has a newsletter, your favorite podcast. It's Locked On Hornets, and we are introducing the Locked On Hornets daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. All right, should we go to you as to why you're laughing again? Like, you just have all these reactions in the background. I feel like we need to address them.
I'm sorry. I'm distracting the show. I was laughing because every time you mention the newsletter, my brain goes, did I write the newsletter yesterday? Like, just immediately I go, wait a minute. Did I do it? And then I think, yes, I did.
Okay.
That's a day. It happens every single day.
You're doing a lot. There's no question. I'm not even joking about this, people. Like, there is a lot that Doug has going on in the background. Plus, he has a baby. He's told you that a million times over the last 3 years. So there's a lot going on for Doug. I need you to hone it in, though, on some Hornets convo, because I think there's a lot to discuss, as there is this entire season. What a weird year it's been. There can't be any other type of season for the Hornets. They lose to the Magic last night, 95-84. They had the lead for, a decent portion of this game until the Magic finally turned things around. Franz Wagner got hot from distance a little bit later, even though he only scored 21 points. Compared to his other performances, 21 is relatively good for this Hornets defense. And I think the defense played well enough that they sagged off of shooters for Orlando. They were begging Anthony Black to shoot. Same thing with De Silva. And, they would hit every once in a while, but still only 95 points for Orlando. LaMelo scores 44. He's 17 of 30 from the field. He gets to the foul line. He shoots 8 free throw attempts. He makes 6 of them. But, Doug, we'll go to you first. Like, LaMelo goes for 40. The offense, other than LaMelo just creating some things, that's the only thing that worked. There's just not a lot of offensive firepower that you can go to. And the story of this game being turnovers, 27 turnovers. It's the most in a game by a team in the NBA this year. It's one off of the most turnovers last year. Golden State had 28 against the Thunder last year. Just all of that, Doug. What were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, so look, 27 turnovers. You can't have 27 turnovers and expect to win any game in the NBA, even ones in which Orlando is gifting you opportunities, because they're missing shots. You're right. The defensive game plan was solid, and I thought they entered the game with the right kind of defensive intensity, mindset, that everyone was crashing the boards. Brandon Miller had double-digit boards in this one. LaMelo looked like rookie sophomore LaMelo in terms of his impact in the middle of the floor, rebounding, like tipping. He doesn't do that as much anymore because I think he's focused on other things, but everybody had to help because Grant, ACL tear, he's not going to be with the team this season. So there was obviously a message sent like, okay, everybody's got to help on the boards tonight without Bridges, without Man. And there's so many ways you can attack this game. I'll stick with the turnovers. So 27, you can't have it. But here's the thing. Even if you knock out a couple of the silly ones that they had, this was a game in which Orlando played playoff-level defense in the regular season. They do that on a night-in and night-out basis. So you knew that kind of coming in. They're a lengthy team. They get into passing lanes. And then you look over at the Hornets side, and they're missing their third option scoring, their fourth option scoring, their fifth option scoring. They don't have a decent sized and skilled center. They haven't had one generally all season long. That helps you run pick and roll plays. That makes a defense be honest. The Orlando Magic did not play honest defense because they didn't have to. They were constantly blitzing LaMelo Ball, trying to force the ball out of his hands. They were doing the same thing to Brandon Miller, and that led to turnover after turnover. So, you can point to the 27 and say, wow, you shouldn't have 27 turnovers. Okay, well, you shouldn't be missing all of those options either. Like, there's obvious context to why they lost this game.
Yeah, I mean, on the defense, on the rebounding side, that shows you they're still trying. They're giving effort out there. It's just a massive hill to climb. They kind of ran out of gas in that fourth quarter. Played well enough through the first three, to kind of steal a win there. But, the Magic are really good and they're really long. And when you got the Wagner bros out there and you got Isaac hitting every, fourth quarter corner three that he looks at, it's just a long night and they kind of wore him down. LaMelo did all he could from a scoring standpoint. Nice to see Brandon, playing the second fiddle there with 20 points. But, until they figure out, until they get somebody back, until they get some of these guys back on the inside, it just seems like they're going to have a lot of these issues because they can't. First of all, you just can't turn the ball over that much. You just can't do it. But you're relying so much on LaMelo with the other options not being there.
So much of the conversation.
Can we talk about that? Because there was a few storylines coming out of this game or questions asked after the game about LaMelo's ISO offense. He scores 44 points in this game, 17 of 30 from the field, 4 of 11 from three, so a decent shooting night, even though he wasn't shooting the ball well from three. Yeah, and some questions about his ISO offense and if that is sustainable. Can we talk about that, Walker?
What if I said no and we just moved on and did something different? Yes, please share your thoughts on the ISO offense and the takes surrounding it.
That's all they had. They had to do that. There was no... If you look down, Josh Green was 1 of 7. Tijan Salon, if he took more than one dribble, he was turning the ball over. If Brandon Miller took more than 2 dribbles, he was turning the ball over. You had Taj Gibson 1 of 4. Let me just keep going. Moussa Diabate only took 2 attempts. I don't really trust him as an offensive player. Cody Martin 2 of 6. He missed a few open opportunities. Seth Curry only played 13 minutes of this game. He actually was 3 of 4. Maybe there's an argument to play him a little bit more. They tried Nick Smith Jr., who I thought gave good defensive intensity, but I don't trust his shot anymore. KJ Simpson, that's a nothing. So what were they going? It's crazy to me. What were they going to do other than LaMelo going out? And the fact that he hit 17 shots in this game, went to the free throw line several times, 6 of 8, 44 points. That is a miracle. That is insane. They would have gotten blown. If LaMelo shared the ball like he normally would, they would have gotten beaten by 30.
Here's the thing: if it's there, I trust LaMelo to share it. You know what I mean? If and he tries it even maybe when it's not there, but he drives and somebody collapses, he finds the open guy. He was doing that a little bit early on. You mentioned Seth hit a 3. Cody was driving a little bit, but LaMelo was cooking. And I was watching that thinking, we've seen LaMelo be the entire offense before, right? And in previous seasons, and I think he's just taken his game to another level. Clearly. on offense and his ability to score. As you mentioned, Doug, what do you have? Only 4 3-pointers in this game. So he did a lot of his damage on those floaters, getting to the rim, trying to get to the, you could see him trying to get to the free throw line, right? And he finally got a few calls in there. He's got to basically end up in the second row after he makes a layup to get a call. And ridiculous. I did get a little nervous, as I'm sure everyone did, on one of those late. But yeah, LaMelo, I think if you're tuning into this thing, well, same old LaMelo, same old Hornets, I just don't agree with that. They're down so bad right now. He's trying to take on so much of the load. I think he's raised his game, but you can't do it all by yourself, my guy.
All right, let's give more LaMelo / Hornets magic takes coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
Let's dive a little deeper into the turnovers. I think that's representative of what this Hornets roster looks like right now. And then we'll get to some observations. And one more time, we'll go back to Doug before we go to the break. What's going on, Doug?
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, I'm just distracting the show. Well, what happened was, and this is for the audio listeners only because everyone on YouTube saw this. So when I did the coming up graphic, it sent us back to the double box with just Walker and I was like, oops, I don't want to cut David out of the show. So I put David back in the show, but David saw that, took that opportunity to get a big stretch in, and I caught him mid-stretch. And then he made a face as to say, oops, I didn't realize I was on camera.
We're off and rolling here. Maybe a couple turnovers for the Locked On Hornets pod. Plenty more still to come on LOH. This episode is brought to you by Built. PSA for anyone who rents out there. If you haven't heard of Built, B-I-L-T, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world that you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOINBILT, joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points on your rent payments today. This episode is also brought to you by Robinhood. Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and the perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn a very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. More Locked On Hornets ahead. If the story is the turnovers, I think it's representative of what's happening to this roster. So much of the conversation, certainly also around injuries, have been in the front court. Mark Williams hasn't played a game yet. Nick Richards has only played, maybe half the games at this point after he went down with injury. So you're down your first and second string center. Now you're down your small ball center and Grant Williams after he's out for the season. Come Moussa Diabate as the hero, but he can only do so much, and there's not much he can do offensively as much as we love him, defensively and rebounding. All of that is still true, and it's an issue. But what we're not discussing enough is the fact that they have a lot of issues in the backcourt as well. Think about the depth that we thought was there coming into the season and how much it's depleted. For one reason, it's been because Vasa Micic wasn't very good. The preseason, he was terrible. It didn't change at the beginning of the regular season. He didn't play last night, despite Nick Smith Jr. and KJ Simpson both getting minutes. And they were out there on the court at the same time to start the fourth quarter against like the most tenacious, scariest, long defense in the league. They were out there at the beginning of the fourth. It didn't last very long. LaMelo came in at like the 11 or 10:30 mark. So what you're seeing here is a team that has LaMelo that you trust with the basketball in his hands. Trey Mann, I trust Trey Mann with the basketball in his hands. No, it's not his primary responsibility to facilitate, but I trust him with the basketball in his hands. Outside of that, I just don't know who that other guy is. I was hoping it would be Brandon Miller, but it's not right now. And that was a part of the scouting process coming out of Alabama. It was actually pretty split. Some people thought that Brandon did have good ball handling chops for his size. Some people didn't. I think last year, for what he was asked to do, for the most part, he did a pretty nice job. I think he would kind of shoot mid-range jumpers because he couldn't get to the rim based off of size, but some of that was ball handling and just not being able to handle it well enough to take care of it and then get to the rim. Now that we're asking more of him, if it's not LaMelo breaking the defense down and creating, okay, it's Brandon's turn, and Brandon is turning the ball over at a really high rate. So it's not concerning for his overall growth. It's not concerning for what he's going to become in this league. But I do think that we're going to go through remember, Miles Bridges / PJ Washington, hey, let's go through these growing pains to see if you can do more stuff. Can you do more stuff with the basketball in your hands? And it's going to be hard to watch sometimes like PJ. We did this with Miles. It's going to be hard to watch. I don't know if I expected it on that plane with Brandon, but I think we might have to go there because of the turnovers. It's been a real issue. Doug, what do you think?
I think you summed it up really nicely. I think what's scary is that you have to do what you said with the same thing that you did with Miles and PJ, and they didn't, whatever that test is that sends you either to the role player or the star track or the superstar track, like that's one of the markers, and you either pass that test or you don't. And it doesn't mean you can't be a really good player in this league, but the gulf between really good player, really good role player in this league and star is a pretty wide gulf, and it involves being able to handle the ball in ISO situations when you're double teamed, when the defense is focused on you, and you can make a play out of it. And so far, we haven't seen Brandon Miller pass that test quite yet. I'm not sure he's going to do it in season. I think he'll get better. He'll get more experience. I wonder if that's just something he's going to have to take back to the laboratory this offseason. But if we go through this season and then another offseason and we're seeing the same kind of stuff, then I think we have to start having difficult conversations about what his ceiling is.
Yeah, definitely something for him to work on in the offseason. But to your point, Walker, the point guard depth disappearing kind of overnight has been the developing story for me over the last couple of weeks. I wish someone would have asked Charles Lee last night why he didn't play Micic, and he could have just said LaMelo had the hot hand, and so he stayed with them. But if you're looking for any indication, I mean, he's trying everything. He's trying guys that just hit the floor, just hit the bench instead of going to Micic, which is just something none of us predicted, especially after not after the Olympic run. And hey, maybe we can get something for him, and maybe he can show us some stuff. So that's, when you're going into the season, you're counting on things. I think that's one of the things they were counting on, that they'd have some point guard depth, that they could give LaMelo some breaks. And, that's just not there.
Count on any depth. I mean, mark it down, guys. Game 17. I watched the press conference from Lee last night. Mark it down. Game number 17 is when Coach Lee officially became a sicko, because the look in his eye, he looked like a broken man. Like he thought there was going to be all these things that he could do with this roster, and no way this could happen to this team for 3 seasons in a row. And here we are once again, and he has run out of options, and he's getting questions about LaMelo ISO basketball. God bless Charles Lee, by the way. Like, he could have taken that opportunity to just be like, are you watching the same thing I'm watching? Steve Clifford certainly took those opportunities. But Charles Lee was a little bit more magnanimous about it. But I mean, wow. Yeah. I don't know what Charles Lee can do at this point other than just get Miles Bridges and Trey Mann back as quickly as possible. Mark Williams and Nick Richards are practicing with the Swarm. There's not going to be any timeline. I had a couple of questions about that in the Every Hornets Boxscore chat last night. There's not going to be a timeline. They are just going to be available to play at some point, and it'll be a shoot-around decision for both of those guys. It is nice that they're both sort of tracking at the same time, so hopefully we get them all back together at once. But until then, this is going to be what it's going to be.
Well, and the focus being on Brandon because he's the second best player on this team. He's the guy that helps LaMelo get to an 80-point threshold combined, with LaMelo doing most of the scoring, 50, and then Brandon going for 30. Last night, LaMelo goes for 40. Brandon is the only other guy that scores over 20 points. It's those two that you can rely on scoring-wise. And I'm sorry, not only 20. Brandon's the only other guy that got you into double figures. The next best score was Seth Curry in 13 minutes, going for 9. Gibson gives you 2. Salon gives you 1. Green gives you 2. The starters outside of Miller and Ball combined for 5 total points. Go to Musa, 2. We love you, Musa, but you're a rebounding merchant. You're not scoring. And then 4 for Cody. It was brutal offensively. They had absolutely nothing. If Brandon didn't turn it over and got a shot up, okay, maybe it goes in. If LaMelo wasn't, destroying the defense and getting to his spots pretty well, and destroying is strong, but also he got to 40. He looked pretty damn good, especially in the fourth again. And the Brandon stuff to me is interesting because it wasn't this big of an issue last year, but because of roster necessity, because of what you have, because of just increased role. And it was an issue for Brandon, but it wasn't this big of an issue because there wasn't as much responsibility, in my opinion. He can handle it better than the front court players I mentioned where we had to go through this experience like PJ and Miles. But where he plays, which is a lot of 2, it's a lot of handling it alongside LaMelo. We're talking about the same type of growing pains you're going through that you did with PJ and Miles. It's just in a position where you're handling the basketball a lot more, unlike what Miles and PJ were doing when they were going through these pains.
Well, this is a classic scouting report catching up with a guy, right? I mean, he was on the ball a ton last season, and defenses started to make the adjustment towards the back half of last season. But, I mean, just go back to that game against Milwaukee where Doc, after the game, saying our defensive game plan was not based around LaMelo Ball. It was based around taking away Brandon Miller. And so he's going to have to pass that test at some point of hey, defense is targeting me, but I can make it. Because, I mean, we're watching LaMelo Ball do that to a certain extent. Defenses are still keying in on him on a lot of these possessions, and he's able to make something out of nothing, including that dance that he did against Google Bitcoin, Goga Batadze. The move that he put on, I compared it to trying to avoid sharp toys on the floor when the kiddo leaves them all out on the floor, just sort of dancing around drunkenly, trying not to step on something. But he leaves the ball with his left hand, gathers it with his right, pulls up, knocks down the shot. He's just doing crazy stuff out there. And when Brandon tries some of that stuff, he's getting his cookies taken more often than not.
Yeah, LaMelo's stuff is so amazing because he kind of twists his body like Matrix style and gets the ball back and then is able to launch these moon shots. His shots always almost touch the scaffolding or whatever and rain down. And he's just doing special things right now. And honestly, you don't want to get caught up in it, but he's on a tear. He's on a run right now. I do wonder if this keeps going like this, do they start to does he maybe start to not have to be out there all the time? Does he start to take a night off here or there? But for right now, I think you have to enjoy it because it's one of the more fun performances and stretches we've seen right now. And right now, that's kind of all they got until they get some of these guys back.
Well, and just the last thing on the turnovers, because it was such a big deal last night. We're seeing it from a lot of the same 2 players, even though it's a team-wide problem. The difference between LaMelo and Brandon, because LaMelo's turning the ball over a lot too. If you go to what LaMelo's doing, he's actually in a higher percentile at his position when it comes to turnover percentage in the entire league. He's in the 53rd percentile when it comes to turnover percentage. 100 usage, okay? So he is handling the basketball more than any player in the league right now, more than Luka, more than anyone. Yeah. And yet he's in the 50th percentile. That is totally fine. When you're the guy handling the ball with every single possession and you end up with like high totals, remember to keep the percentage in mind because that's what truly matters. And he's actually like average, totally fine in that regard. So I'm cool with that. And he makes things happen, whether he's driving to the basket. We got to see that a little bit against Orlando. The floater, man. Oh my God, chef's kiss. It's working so well for him this year. But with Brandon, okay? Brandon at his position is also handling the basketball quite a bit. And his turnover percentage is quite bad. And he's in the 25th, 26th percentile among people at his position. He's turning it over at a higher rate. So if you want to say, well, LaMelo's turning it over at a high volume. Yeah, but it's completely different, man. And one, they televise the basketball game, so you can just watch that it's totally different. But also, if you want to dig into the advanced metrics, they tell you that it's different. All of it lines up. So Brandon can hit a bunch of shots, and he can be outright amazing. He can hit the 2 clutch 3-pointers in overtime against Detroit, and we can chant Miller time, and we can feel really good. And you should still feel really good about the second overall pick. But this is an issue. Turnovers. You're quite literally handing the basketball over to the other team and asking them to score while negating any chance that you have. It's a big issue, and I hope that it gets fixed sooner rather than later.
Yeah, just very succinctly, the thing with LaMelo is that we know what his ceiling is turnover-wise because he's maxing out his usage, and what you saw turnover-wise there, yeah, he could have shaved 1 or 2 of them off, but he's just doing so much that that's going to happen. We don't even really know what the ceiling on what if Brandon Miller had the usage that the LaMelo had. I mean, he probably turns it over 15, 16 times because there are handle issues.
Yeah, it's new. And like you said, last thing, people are keying on him right now, right? They're keying on LaMelo still, but that's just those two. And if the defensives are starting to plan for you, it's going to make it a little harder. So I still feel like Brandon can adjust. I still feel like he can get better at that. He's certainly got age on his side. So not all bad, but yeah, it's not helping things right now.
Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We'll give you some other observations. Don't go to a stretching, David Walker.
Go ahead. No, go get a good stretch in. I'm not coming back to you. Get a coffee.
The other observations last night. Where was Grant Williams mixed? Plus, we did get some good news in the front court. We have to address some good news that we got from Hornets PR yesterday. That's still to come in the last segment of LOH. This episode is brought to you by Skims. Look, maybe a little TMI, okay? But I'll just tell you, I'm a briefs guy, through and through. But finding the perfect yet classic brief can be quite the challenge. Luckily, for me and for you, Skims came through with their cotton brief. It's everything you love about the classic fit and feel of a cotton brief with the maxed out comfort and breathability only Skims can do. For all my briefs guys out there, trust me, you can't beat this one. Shop Skims men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/LockedOnNBA. That's skims, again, .com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. We got some good news from Hornets PR yesterday. Good news here is that Mark Williams and Nick Richards are both sent down to Greensboro for a rehab assignment. As the tweet read yesterday, they would practice with the Greensboro Swarm, and I guess they'll play a game with Greensboro. I don't know how long they'll be down there, but they are healthy enough to play on rehab assignment before returning whenever the training staff, coaching staff, and organization deems fit. David, thank God we got some, hopefully, reinforcements coming back soon. And to have two right away, maybe Nick Richards, I don't know if he'll start. I think it would be Mark Williams starting, even if it is the first time he's played basketball in like a year's worth of time. But at least you still have Nick Richards coming alongside Mark, to where now you don't have to throw him out there out of necessity and maybe, push the limit on how much he can go. You have Nick, who can maybe like play pseudo starter minutes until Mark Williams catches his breath and knocks out some of that rust.
Yeah, it feels like that's how it might go. I mean, gosh, guys, we're just going to have so many centers now. What are we going to do with
What do we do with
Charles
two?
Lee is just going to be spoiled. Yeah, everybody's chomping at the bit to see, especially Mark Williams out there, but anybody. I mean, poor Taj, man, like that's just not sustainable. The guy is going to retire if we keep running him out there as a starter much longer. And so anybody they can get back at this point is going to be beneficial. But look, I mean, Mark Williams, this is a real thing that they are going to have to figure out, obviously. I mean, this injury was weird. It continues to be weird, but he's a main piece, of this team trying to move forward. So they got to figure out if they can keep him healthy and get him on the floor with LaMelo, Brandon Miller, and see what he can do. But I guess they're just going to sit there and wait for it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, like you guys talked about it yesterday, try and sign someone or use some of those exceptions or something. They're just kind of stuck where they are. And the sooner they can get back, the better it'll be for everybody.
On the Taj thing, we do this every year now, it seems like, with one player, 1 foot out the door into retirement. We say, nope, don't get on that fishing boat quite yet there, Ish Smith, Taj Gibson. We need to run you into the ground right before. Just go ahead and really destroy those knees right before you leave for retirement. And on the center thing, we haven't seen Mark Williams play a basketball game for the Charlotte Hornets in almost a calendar year. So I think even when he comes back, there's going to be a lot of adjustment. There's going to be a lot of rust shaking. There's going to be maybe some minutes restrictions for both of these guys as they get worked back in. I don't imagine them being available and immediately making significant impacts on the team. I think there is going to be a period of 5 to 10 games where everybody's kind of figuring this out. And LaMelo has to remember how to throw to a center that can catch. You can throw it up high. There's going to be all kinds of wild things happening.
I would like to, by the way, just throw out a proposal for the bee's knees meter. Where are you on a scale of Isaiah Thomas to Ish Smith to Taj Gibson? Where are you on the bee's knees meter? Old guys coming in and just falling down. Because Taj falls down more than Roy Hibbert did. It happens every single game, probably a good 3 or 4 times. There was the best pass LaMelo had in this game against Orlando was a classic rookie LaMelo no-look transition fireball to a streaking Taj that just does nothing with it. Look, God bless him, man.
He's not here to do that.
It's not. That's not his game. Defensive legend, grit and grind. I know that's more Grizzlies, but you get the idea. Tom Thibodeau, like Taj, playing with that whole squad. It's just it's about that time for old Taj Gibson. The bee's knees meter at Taj might be the max out point.
I'm maxed out. I'm maxed out on my bee's knees. In fact, I'll tell you where I am. This was a quote from Dell at the very end of this game when Musa fouled Cole Anthony with like 10 seconds left for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. And Dell said, on a Hornets foul, Dell said, this game is being extended for no reason.
Yeah. Oh, the refs.
And I think he was channeling me. He was channeling David. He was channeling Walker. He was channeling all of us who were watching this game. Like, what
they
got to
do something. They got to do something about it. I heard yesterday on NBA radio, like somebody out there, some sicko went and looked through the games, and every quarter gets longer than the last, and it's just like an NBA referee epidemic. It's not going the right way, guys. Come on.
And LaMelo, the NBA has to do something about these foul calls for LaMelo. I'm serious. Like, there was a play where he got Anthony Black on his hip, put him in jail. Like I've seen Damian Lillard do 1,000 times and get a foul call. In fact, I saw him do it 1,000 times against the Hornets. The last time they played each other, Damian Lillard gets that call every single time, and LaMelo could not get the call, and he got frustrated, and I knew it. Just like I said before, it was like my kid watching her at the dinner table, and I was like, oh, she's about to throw that spaghetti halfway across the room, and I knew LaMelo was about to do a frustration foul, and he did it. To pick up his 4th foul, and it was a take foul. Like, it was just it made no sense.
Well, you know what that was, because Doug, it wasn't the not getting a foul call. What happened was it was him crossing.
He turned it over.
He turned it over, but
it was a build. It was a build. All of this stuff. He keeps a log in his head, and he's either going to take it out on a take foul or he takes it out on the water boy at the bench, or the towel guy ripping the towel out of the head. Like, he's getting frustrated. And I think all of us are watching this wondering, like, what is this? Look, we didn't even go over like the major sort of accomplishments franchise history wise that LaMelo had. First guy to do it, 35 plus points for 3 straight games. He's only the 5th player in franchise history to score 40 plus in back-to-back games. And he's doing crazy things. He has more 30-point games in the NBA than any player right now. He passed Giannis in this game. Like, what more does he have to do to put a stake in the ground and say, I am a legitimate star in this league? Call the things that I'm getting contact here. Call it.
He's top 3 in scoring now. He went from top 5 to top 3. We're in some pretty crazy territory in NBA ranks. And I will say, like, the LaMelo turnover skip pass attempt, I'm not even all that mad at the skip pass attempt because you're just trying to find something. You're trying to help out another player. But the foul was, I just don't know what he was doing there. He was so mad that was it wasn't let me go for the basketball because I'm so mad. It's let me grab Cole Anthony in transition because I'm mad. It's please call this. And like that's the kind of stuff. Guess what happens? At the beginning of the 4th quarter, you got to play freaking KJ Simpson and Nick Smith Jr. for a minute and a half. And then Charles Lee's like, oh, bleep it. We got these 2 guys out there. We have to throw LaMelo in immediately. We tried to see, hey, can we steal some time? Can we get to 8? Before we throw LaMelo in? No? Okay, go in at 11 minutes. That's how it goes. Like, the fouls are frustrating, but what are you going to do? The guy scores 40 points. He scores 50 points. You'll take some of the fouls.
I'll tell you what LaMelo needs to do. Instead of doing the take foul, he needs to do what Fred VanVleet did, which is open the wallet, say, all right, I'm going to spend $50,000, and I'm going to go to each and every single referee, and I'm going to say, you're a bleep, you're a bleep, you're a bleep, bleep you, I'm out of here. That's what he needs to do.
Forget you. Yeah, I mean, when do we revisit the benching and decide if yes it worked or no it did not work?
Oh, that is a tremendous conversation. There are people on both sides of that where it worked for LaMelo, it didn't work for LaMelo. It is a glass half full, empty approach, depending on who you want to talk about.
I don't remember scoring 50. Before that, you know what I'm saying?
That's, right. I mean, there you go. There's that. I think I think there are probably, I don't know if benchings, I think there are going to be more learning experiences ahead. So you could say it didn't work in that sense, that it hasn't fully cured it, but I didn't think that was going to fully cure it. This is going to be, and honestly, to me, you really only truly learn these lessons and take them to heart historically for NBA stars when you really mess up in the playoffs. And the Hornets are a long way from that because of all the stuff we talked about in this episode.
Thinking man meme, you don't have to go through those problems if you don't make the playoffs.
That's right.
That's what the Hornets are doing right now. That'll do it.
Depressed Charles Lee meme. My God, what have I done?
There have been a couple of those faces that he's made. A Charles Lee face is becoming a thing when you go to the sideline.
Too late. You're a sicko now, baby.
Staring into space, singing "Hello, Darkness, my old friend" in his head. He's a sicko. Welcome. You're among us now. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. Like, subscribe, rate, do all that stuff. There's David Walker. Find him on Twitter at David B. Walker. He's also a part of Every Hornets Boxscore.com, just like Doug Branson, who also hosts Locked On NBA, and I am not a part of any of those. I was trying to do the whole snake thing and then get a trend going, the connection between all of us, but I don't have that. Instead, I just do WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. Listen to me on Wes and Walker, Sports Radio, 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.